Okay, friends, so let's see. Do we have anyone actually listening? Oh my gosh, there's already a bunch of people listening. Isn't this great? There's like 10 people. That's fantastic. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Today's topic, again, one thing that I'm going to be still probably pretty bad at is due to my mental, sometimes physical state. It's kind of hard to really plan these live streams. They'd probably be much better if they were planned. But anyways, what can you do? 2024 starting off, and I wanted to talk about something that actually happened over 10 years ago now, at the very end of 2013. And that's about my business. So we're going to talk about my sort of one major business experience in Russia that doesn't have to do with the media, okay? So as someone who's become medium successful or just a little smidge successful within Russia, I can talk to you all day about my media career and successes and failures and which things I've kind of tried to do on my own that have succeeded and failed, and there's definitely been some. But none of that involves around the true like business where you're actually making a product. What they might call the hard stuff. Recently, because I'll put it this way, where did the idea for this come from? Not only is it a 10-year anniversary, but it's one of those interesting things where I'm kind of become into watches. As we can show you, oh, is it over here? Oh my gosh, can I reach it? No, there it is. So for my New Year's gift for myself was a 24-hour Russian-made Vostok watch. Look at that, 24-hour edition. Because in Russia, they only pretty much use military time for everything, yet the clocks are not military time. But this one is. So I picked that bad boy up for myself. But let me just say I've become a bit of a watch fanboy over times. I know people, guys who are into cool sneakers are called sneakerheads. I believe it's something like horologist is the name for fans of watches. But do we really want whore in our name? So maybe we should call ourselves watchheads. I don't know. But anyways, I've become one of them. And one of the most notable watch collectors in the world is Kevin O'Leary. Who's that? He's kind of a business guy. Some people accuse him of being corrupt, but then again, everyone online gets accused of being corrupt, including me. And he is a huge, super mega watch collector, top tier, makes a lot of watch-related YouTube content. But he's most famous for his show, The Shark Tank. And then the Shark Tank, people sort of come and pitch their business ideas to this group of 5 investors who theoretically, remember, reality TV can lie, but who theoretically are looking for things to invest in, and theoretically when they make a deal on the show, that happens in real life. And I was kind of watching some of that type of content, because like as you can see, YouTube, the algorithm kind of pushed me along this conveyor belt of intersecting interests, and I kind of remembered that basically I did that. I actually did create one product in Russia that wound up giving me enough money to buy a car in America. Okay, that's what I used the money for at the time. So here we go, guys. I don't know who knows what or not about me, but if you see here, see these guys here. These are not like models or artwork. Well, it is a little bit of artwork, obviously. The flames are not real. I produced Russia's supposedly the second, but the first game I don't remember, like major tabletop miniature war game. Okay, so this is something I did about 10 years ago because I could see as soon as I had kid number 1 born and kid number 2 was on the way, I could see that this whole thing of the unfortunate reality of the time we live in, it's really hard to push forward as a salary man. Yeah, if someone inherits like an apartment or house in the place they live in Russia, so they already have their sort of like place of residence taken care of, then life on a salary is a little bit easier to do. But when you're losing a ton of money every month to rent and all that stuff, and at the same time, not only do you have to pay rent, but then you have to save money to eventually buy a place to live, that eats up all your salary. So I thought it was time to make a game. So anyways, with this live stream, I'm going to be happy to take calls at any point. And if you guys have some questions about what it was like to run a small business in Russia, please comment. As you can see on the Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore channel, we have the a graphic that says Telegram live stream starts in 30 minutes. If you have any comments, or questions, it would be amazing if you would throw them down there, because I don't have too much to say about this whole thing, but about the whole issue related to doing the small business. But I have a little bit to say, but I think it'd be better if I got your questions, because on this particular topic, one of the reasons I've put off doing it for 2 months is I don't quite know what you want to know when it comes to like Russian immigration laws, or about our next topic for today will be about joining the Russian army to get citizenship. About that stuff I kind of know, but with this I don't really know what people would want to know about this. But so anyways, again, the genesis of this really came from two things. When I was in high school and I was a complete and massive loser, one of the things that really saved my sanity was that on the weekends I could go and hang out with some people my age, some people older. But remember, this is already when I'm like 15 or 16. So let's just put it this way. I wasn't like a prepubescent boy hanging out with older men. Okay. It wasn't like that. I already had a beard. But I could hang out with people who were either older than me or my age, who were sort of into these war games, and everyone was a bit nerdy. And it kind of gave me some freedom from the extreme uncoolness that I had at school. So I played a lot of war games, and my favorite game of all time, called Warzone, kind of had a similar look to this, and but that game died, unfortunately. And so I kind of thought that'd be cool to make like a game in Russia where one of the forces is sort of like futuristic Russia, kind of in like a Warhammer game, but in Russia. And I thought that would be a cool idea. And I think it kind of was. So anyways, as you can see here, you have sort of the Russian forces. I really wanted them to have some kind of like semi-autonomous unit with them, something that's kind of like a robot, but with the robot special rules, because the Russian side is. But anyways, let's not get into the fantasy part of this. Let me just to show you a couple pictures of this, and let me kind of break down what were maybe like the successes and failures of this project. So that's the Russian army. This was the opposing army. They're cherty, which are like devils and demons in Russia. So we have some bigger, more kind of fat, corrupto-looking, bureaucrat-looking guys, and plenty of cherty that are kind of like gopniks or street thugs from the 90s, and the Russian legend of Kolobok, which is just a big ball that gets tricked into being eaten. So that's kind of a beholder, cacodemon, circular kind of model that I just thought would be really popular with the people who are familiar with those sort of sci-fi universes. So those are the two armies you get in the game. This is, again, the game. Sorry that all the pictures are small. On the old website, remember this is over a decade ago. On the old website, a lot of the pictures were all kind of small, so these are all pictures for the site. And this shows everything you got in the box. You got your two armies, you got your 20-sided die, 6-sided die, a bunch of terrain that was also produced in Russia. So one thing also that you should know is every last thing here, everything, the battlefield, the buildings, the book, the miniatures were all 100% produced in Russia. All of it. 100%. Okay? So in terms of being a patriotic project, we did it. Anyways, these were also just some little, like, the tokens that came with the game that I had to draw in there. So, yeah. This was a piece of artwork, so there was a lot of different artwork, and some interesting artists got excited about it. This was always one of my favorites of not... Oh, wow, that's way too big. Maybe could we just increase it this way? Yeah. I just thought that was really an interesting take on the whole look of the game. That artist did a really cool job and came up with some concepts for what would essentially be the sequel to this game that was never released. But I like this. Very, very different. Very not what I had in mind making the game, but in some ways it's better. This is kind of more what I had in mind making the game. This was also done, and also all the art is done by Russian people. So this art was done very quickly and a little bit on the cheap by Russian artist Anton Kokorev, who has done like the comic books for Dark Souls. So if you ever saw the comic book series for Dark Souls, he did all the art for that. Okay, so he's really super, mega, ultra successful. He's done real artwork for the Warhammer game series and books and all this stuff. He's done everything, okay? And especially as someone who's both a fan of Warhammer and especially Dark Souls, that's really cool. Although he wasn't yet He didn't yet do those comic books for Dark Souls when this game was done. I think that came later. But he did do stuff for Warhammer before. Anyways, and this was sort of his original sketch of what he thought sort of Russian super soldier would look like in the future, where he kind of has the breastplate with these extra pockets on it that would kind of be like a T-72 tank, sort of like a medieval warrior mixed with a T-72. And I still like this concept. I think he did a great job on it. Maybe, in hindsight, it's a little more cartoony than I wanted, but the problem is the more serious the artwork gets, the more expensive it gets. And when you're making a miniature, if everything is these crazy, brutal details, it is very hard to produce a miniature, and we'll talk about that. So, this is the art for one of the bad guys. This is probably actually my favorite picture. This artist did a fantastic job on this image and then vanished. I never talked to her again. So she did one hell of a job on this. I think I paid her like $200 and she vanished into the ether for all eternity. And this one was also from Mr. Kokorev. His idea of the female bogatyr. Bogatyr is like a Russian superhero, basically. That's what Ilya Muromets and all the great warriors of the past would be called. So I also still like this design. This is, although the drawing over here, what was that? This, I think, is stylistically extremely interesting and really different. And the sky actually reminds me of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, for those who are in the know. Of anything, I think this was really the look for the game that I was going for. Very serious, yet kind of cosmic and all that stuff. And, yeah. And I also wanted the Russians to have sort of recognizable colors. That's the actual overall generic color of Russian camouflage as it stands today. But camouflage on artwork tends to look bad, and on miniatures it looks even worse. So that's why it's a flat color. Yeah, I wanted them to have more common traditional weapons that in the next 200 years the weapons don't really change that much. This was another thing from Anton. I don't know why he did two versions. Maybe he just did it for fun. I don't know. Maybe I paid him for it. I don't know. But this other version is also pretty good. As you can see, melee weapons are part of the game in futuristic warfare, and that's the original drawing of the Kolobok monster, which was supposed to be a powerhouse. I don't think I made him as powerful as he should have been. But anyways. And then this is the presentation, which happened after the game was already off being sold, to try to sell this game to some developers to actually... Oh, there's the concept art for the bad guys. Couldn't even find that. Wow. For the Biesi, the bigger, fatter bad guys. Wow, that's actually decent. That here was the original artwork from Kokorev about what the Russian heroes should look like, but I kind of wanted them to be... in the concept of it, that like, to what extent could a like Orthodox Christian futuristic society tolerate cybernetics? And this guy's way too chromed out, as they would say in the cyberpunk universe, and so it didn't really meet the demand there. One of the famous bad guys. In fact, this was probably the best selling miniature of all. Angelica, who sold a lot. Of course, that's just colored by me. It's a 3D render. That's not, of course, the miniature. But so anyways, we get into about like why people would want to buy this, develop Mutant Overthrow. Though these guys were sweet. The Polizy that could like teleport around the board using magical oil. They're made of oil. It is Russia after all. So anyways, this is probably the biggest image we had, where we had just a bunch of guys and guns, just everything shooting. Never got the tank into production. Too expensive. Couldn't do it. But anyways, we'll get to then this, the successes and failures. There she is. And here's a version of her that's bald. I don't even know where they got that from. I don't remember having anything, a bald version saved. So I don't even know how that got in the presentation. That's the magic of the world we live in. And there's the Kolobok. As you can see, he's much bigger than a normal miniature. And Koshay the Undying, who's from Russian legend, he was supposed to be a special gift for all the people who bought the boxed game or the Kickstarter. But yeah, that turned out to be not the best. And one of the Bogatyr models. Then here the Russian soldier themselves. This model kind of changed. I think changed for the better. This guy's really generic looking. There's a different version of the sort of semi-autonomous drone that shoots rockets called the Grad, like the real Grad system in real life. And there's our teleporting oil demons. And we have our Lot of the Future, which unfortunately also never got to production, despite the fact that it's completely done and completely ready for production. We never got to it. But weirdly, though, the 3D artist put the Russians in there, that was supposed to not be the vehicle for the Russians. But whatever. As you can see, some of this artwork has errors, but here's the more final look of the Russian infantry, which I think looks better. It has a more familiar yet unique kind of Russian special forces look for the normal Russians that are not cybernetically enhanced in any way. And there's them painted. And the Biesi painted. Unfortunately, the Biesi were painted by me, so they're not as good. But yeah. And there's the Polo Z. There's a mortar team because they're chorts. It was called the Chorter in English. You can't deny the puns. And then we went into a sort of neo-NATO force. After the game was released, after about half a year, I was able to release a NATO-based army. Why do they have a spider tank? Because the artist was willing to make he wanted to. He basically, you may have seen on my channel where I go to Altai, the Altai Mountains, to talk to a 3D artist who makes his money from Hollywood, still to this day somehow. And he really prefers doing robots to people. And so I tried to negotiate with them. I'm like, Stas, brother, I really want you to continue making the miniatures because you do such a good job, but what would you have a passion for? And he was like, I only do robots. I'm only interested in robots. That's what I have a passion for. So I was like, well, Stas, then let's come up with a NATO army that's actually very mechanical. That's because Russians tend to see the NATO forces as actually being very cowardly. And so the sort of idea that most of the NATO forces are actually robots, that their lives don't matter. They don't. None of the actual NATO staff of the future risks their lives. They just send out a bunch of robots like this dog thing. That would be cool. And also that most of these robots actually have weapons that are sort of in that gray area of being somewhere between a weapon and somewhere between being like crowd control. I thought that gave them kind of a dark feel that all of these sort of robotic monsters are equally used on the battlefield and at home. It's like you've kind of a dark future there. That's them painted. I don't know why the artist put a sort of side glow on them, which is kind of weird, but who cares? I love the poses. I thought those models turned out great. I'm really proud of those. That's why they're called the sheepdogs. Because I tried to come up with a bunch of different names that would work in both Russian and English, and that's a good one. And why are they the sheepdogs? Because they round up the sheep, as in the common masses. Sort of dark vision of the future there again. And again, they called this the humanitarian aid, the giant murder spider, because it was supposedly it's supposed to be sent to the colonized planets of the solar system to help the locals. So there you go. That's kind of the miniatures. That's kind of the look of the game. I don't know, what would be a good thing to sort of leave this off on? Or I guess we could just go back to me here, and we'll see if there's actually any questions. There's a lot open on screen. Hold on. Okay, there we go. There we go. That worked out. Let's see, are there any questions? There's one. So all the Vax 5G mind-controlled chemtrail posts as well as weird rants belong in the barn dominium. Yes, Christopher, that is why we're doing the whole barn dominium thing. So that way, if people really want to, under the Tim Kirby platform, for some reason, talk all day long about conspiracies, they can do so there. Okay. No one wants to call in either. So then let me then move on. Remember, you can comment on the main Tim Kirby hardcore page. Any comment that goes pretty much anywhere, I'll see it. Let me also throw out my Boosty, because log in. It's going to make me log in. I logged in like recently. Because the American Village constantly eats money. So, if you want to donate to me, what are you actually donating to? You're kind of donating to me because I need to eat, but you're also donating to the American Village. So, I'm going to put this basically under the picture that says Telegram live stream starts in 30 minutes. You can go in there if you want and donate to Boosty if you enjoy this content. Or if you're watching this later on YouTube, Rumble, Brighteon, BitChute, or RooTube, you can find similar links in the description. But anyways, so what was good about the project? What was bad? It was good that it made enough money to buy a car in America. Sweet. Why America? Because at the time, I was really a lot more hopping between countries, and I really wanted my kids to become native speakers of English, which they are. I still, to this day, my son speaks English in kind of a weird way, which is frustrating. I wish he would up his game, but it's hard to motivate little children. So that was part of it. And when you're in America, especially when you're in the Midwest, you need a car. And my parents, I think, went down to one car, or maybe not. I don't know, but we needed it. That's all I remember. And that was a practical thing to do with the money. So again, how did this whole then business thing work? Also, maybe a little bit more of a timeline here. Again, I've never really talked about this topic very much, especially in English. So you might be wondering then, okay, you had this idea, you made this crazy miniature war game, it made enough money to buy a car in America, and then you stopped. So that's a weird thing. So first, maybe I should answer, why did I stop? One of the problems that I had that I noticed also on this Shark Tank TV show with Kevin O'Leary is a lot of people go on that show to ask for money for something that already seems successful. Why? Because they sort of get off the ground and they start doing something, and then they realize they don't have the resources to take it to the next level. And that's kind of what happened. I did what's called the Russian equivalent of Kickstarters called Boomstarter. I was able to do one of the first successful Boomstarter campaigns in the history of Russia, and it was also good because whenever you do something first, it's a lot easier, you know. And it succeeded, but it was really not nearly enough to do this kind of project. But anyways, it got to the point where I sold everything I had, and there was just no money to do anything else. Like, I kind of made profit, and it was like I was faced with a choice. So I've made some profit, and essentially, like, sort of the money I had to do this thing, let's just call it X. I sort of got X from the Boomstarter. I spent it all. I started doing this. I sold everything I made, and I got that much amount of money back. So essentially, all the people who donated money, they all got their game. They all got all the stuff they donated. Some, people who didn't do the Boomstarter, they all, paid money. So essentially, I kind of converted donation money into profit money. But then I didn't really want to let it go. That car in America was looking like a much better choice, and I was thinking, the way this thing's going, because I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Some people warned me, some people didn't. Some warnings I listened to, some I didn't. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk away from this gamble a winner. So that's why there's no game. But ultimately, what are the things that really succeeded and what didn't? A crazy foreign guy who works in the media who made a game was interesting. The fact that it was actually a successful Boomstarter got the game extra hype. The fact that I know some people and met some people and sort of like the wargaming universe here helped out. But from the very beginning, there were definitely some quality control issues. The guy who promised to make all the miniatures for me, basically after I got the money, the day I got the money, he was just like, you know what, I don't know, I'm kind of not making much profit on this. I'm going to increase the price. And he increased the price of production by 2.5 times. And so what happened when that happened? It meant that I had to make all the miniatures. And so all these cards and all these miniatures and all this stuff, that was all me doing the design, me cutting it out, me pouring the miniatures and putting them in the pressure chambers and all this other shit, and bagging them and all that. And so the game became way too... it became sort of like a weird homemade game. But the problem is that already by 2013... the tolerance of people for homemade kind of indie games, especially in Russia, was low. Whereas if you look at the game, yeah, cool. When you assemble the miniatures and, you put your base coat of paint on them, they look pretty good. And most people really did like them that got to that phase. But it didn't have that professionalism that like Warhammer has or other games. And also I did things kind of wrong. One of the things that always excited me about those games were the rules. One of the reasons I loved the Warzone game, as opposed to being a Warhammer kid, I was a Warzone kid, not a Warhammer kid, was I felt that the Warzone rules were just way better. And I was always more excited about the tactics and the rules and fighting these battles and all this other stuff on the table. But actually, I was wrong. The whole point of having a miniature game is to create an interesting IP, to create an interesting game universe, and that's actually where all the money is. That's really what people wanted out of the game. And so when the game came out, the rule book was really a rule book. There was very little about the game universe, and I didn't think much about it. Since I've had 10 years to think about it, I was able to sort of go back in time and construct, because I also almost had a comic book deal. So I had to write basically an entire year's worth of comic books about this game. Okay, it would be like a 1 year story arc. So when I had to do that, I actually had to start thinking down and be like, okay, so we have cybernetic super soldier Russians of the future on other planets. Why? What are we doing here? Why are there demons? Why do demons then sometimes fight robots that come from a dystopian NATO future? Why are we doing this? Excuse me, I've been sick. And so, yeah, so in the process of writing out the comic book series that, of course, never got produced, but it was still a really good experience. And to be honest, if comic books were more popular, it's actually kind of a fun job to write comic books. I'll be honest with you, especially when it's your own game universe. But so essentially, I fixed the problems of the game universe. And as of December, the month before December 2023, so as of recording, that's a few days ago, I actually, not the meeting, but like a month ago, early December, I actually was able to work out a deal to get a children's game that I made many years ago as well that never went to print, to get that produced. The guy loved it. And he was also, this game's called Mutant Overthrow. So he was a Mutant Overthrow fan. He really liked some of the overall concepts of the game, but he really felt that there's room for improvement, which is true. So Mutant Overthrow may actually come back. After a 10-year hiatus, well, it's not 10 years. The game operated for like 3 years. After a 6 or 7 year hiatus, Mutant Overthrow is going to come back probably next year and get reproduced but this time I kind of learned my lesson that if I'm making this and we're actually going to go through with this, I fixed the rules and updated them and all that stuff. That's the easy part. Is that, if we're going to make this game have like there's a reason that the Warhammer rulebook tends to be 300 pages long, and 150 pages or more is generally just story stuff and game universe stuff. It's going to be so much more focused on the universe and the drama and this strange, optimistic, yet violent future. Not a dark future. It's actually a fairly positive future, a very human future, but a very violent future. So it's going to be about that. And as Christopher was even mentioning in one of the comments about conspiracy theories, this is going to involve a few conspiracy theories that actually work out for the best. So someone might find that a little bit fun. But so anyways, someone's writing one heck of a comment. I can see the... oh, excuse me, I cannot stop coughing. I can see the whole chat thing just pulsating with someone writing one message, or they might have something very angry to say. But so anyways, yeah, that was the thing. That was really the key mistake of why the project didn't succeed, was that I wasn't able to make it go from sort of this like indie project, this homebrew boutique game, to actual production. And now that I've found someone that wants to produce it, that produces thousands of games at big factories in China, boom. That's a good thing. That is a very good thing. That was a problem, and the fact that I really focused all on having a crazy, interesting rule set that allowed people to do all sorts of insane stuff. Like you hit someone with a rocket, and if they somehow survive it, they fly off the top of a building and fall 3 stories. What's the damage for that? And maybe they bounce and fall into a tub of ooze or whatever. I added all sorts of those kind of crazy features, and I don't think that they were really ultimately to the benefit of the game. Even though I thought it was kind of cool to have, the ability to sort of push your enemies in all sorts of traps and dangers and all this other stuff. So, yeah. But, and also, the game didn't involve measuring. It was a war game where you didn't have to measure. It's maybe a little hard to explain in the abstract, but I also found that when people play these types of war games, there's a lot of arguing and time spent on measuring, and so I really wanted to eliminate that as to get the game flowing. Because Warhammer games, even with the way the rules get more and more simple over time, it still takes a long time, and I always preferred as a kid, like if I'm gonna go and I'm gonna spend my weekend playing game, I don't want to play like one 4 to 6 hour Warhammer game. I'd rather have at the time played 2 or 3 games of Warzone that take like 1 hour each. You know, I'd rather play something in rounds, try different opponents, try different tactics, and yeah. So, anyways, hopefully this game and this business adventure that I was in will come to fruition again in 2024. So my fingers are crossed. Someone was writing a massive comment, and they're not going to. Well, anyways, our second topic for the day is hopefully going to be interesting. I'm going to talk about how normal people, Westerners, can join the Russian army.